Cardfight Vanguard has gone into its third transitional format, forever changing the way we know Standard. 24 clan dynamic gone. 3,000 years into the future, 5 nations remain. With this new format, quality of matches have changed to a more equal and subtle power level for the 5 nations. But let me be the judge of that. In this series, each week I will be facing off against multiple players in my state and online to see if this is the bright future Vanguard needed or just another format falling victim to power creep. This is Way of the Cardfighter. What's up, card fighters? My name is Nara Samurai, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Way of the Cardfighter. So, Way of the Cardfighter is my way to be analytical and see what each deck has to offer and their abilities in their respective format. And today I will be taking in the one and only Bastion, a very controversial deck for the community. Bastion is a very aggressive deck, and I kind of want to venture into its mechanics to see if this is a deck that's power creeping the format or if it has flaws that keep the deck in check from reaching that point. And with that, for deck building, I contacted my good old friend Richard to give me a rundown on the deck list and what the main focus of the nation is so that I can work on bringing out its full potential. So for the deck, pretty much our basic ride line from the starter deck is going to be our draw 1 starter, our fort that lets us top call a card, rooks for the draw 1, and finally our boss Bastion. We do run a total of 4 Bastions in the list. You kind of do want to guarantee that persona right, and his second skill is not half bad. If a grade 3 runs drove track, I can discard a card and restand a unit. And with that, we have a unit that's pretty good to restand, which is our MVP Alden. Alden's skill is when he's placed, he's able to draw 2 cards by a cost of Counterblast 2 and Soul Blast 1. Wonderful as other skill is when he attacks, he does gain additional 5k for the turn. So if he keeps restanding, he will keep gaining that 5k power. Following him is going to be someone that's going to give us that counter blast if we use too much of it, which is Fasado. Fasado's skill is when his attack hits, he's able to counter charge 1 and soul charge 1. One of his second things that makes him a pretty solid card is that he can only be retired if you attack him and cannot be chosen by most card effects. So however you choose to use this card will make him very strong and powerful. Fluke is going to be generating some more power to either Bastion or Alden, giving any rear guard plus 10k when he's put to soul, and overall giving you that soul charge capability in order to soul blast later. And what about soul blast? We have our one and only Dark Strain Dragon. Dark Strain Dragon's skill is act soul blast 2, and you may have all the grade 3s in your back row gain boost, overall making your turn much more threatening. And because we do have an influx of grade 3s, we need a grade 3 that is guardable. And that is why we have Kokubil. Kokubil's skill is for every 2 grade 3s, it will gain 5k shield, overall making it the best defensive option currently for Bastion. Following that, we run 2 of the Snake Witch, pretty much a mini Alden. When she is discarded from hand, I can counterblast, soul blast, and draw a card. And ending this off, we do have a Lepisto for the 1 in a million turn that I'm able to restand and attack a total of 5 times if a trigger was revealed. Next, onto grade 1s, because grade 2s are a joke for this deck, are 4 P-Guard. This P-Guard, pretty much solid one, can be discarded and used as the only P-Guard if you only have 2 or less cards, and overall the best choice. Now onto zeros, because Painkiller didn't make the cut, is 4 Heal Trigger. Did I say 4 crit? I mean a total of 8. 3 fronts, and 1 Keter over trigger. And that overall is the deck list. Pretty straightforward. Alden playing the big pusher and finisher, being supported by his fellow companions, with Fasado acting as the resource regenerator for the deck. My opponent for today will be my local friend Anderson, which is piloting the infamous Zorga deck, which strives on drop zone revival and powering up its board. But don't let me tell you about the deck list. Let's bring it up to Anderson at the shop.
Hey guys, this is Anderson Williams, here playing some games with Nara Samurai. Today we're going to be going into my Zorga list. Frankie and I are actually getting into some games, so whenever we're ready to go, switch it over.
Starting off with the ride line, technically, we're running 4 copies of Mysterious Rain Spiritualist Zorga. Continuous, when you would play a normal order, you may bind a different normal order from your discard pile and perform Alchemagic. When you do, you add the cost and effect onto the other card, performing the bound card's effect second. Then act Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, counterblast to the card from your discard pile and call it to Vanguard Circle. So this is the engine of the deck. You run everything around him. Not really much more to say. So grade 2 of the ride line is Black Tear's Husk Dragon. Auto Rearguard. For auto, when placed on Vanguard Circle, choose a normal order from your discard pile and add it back to your hand. And then continuous Rearguard Circle. When you play this, if you played an order this turn, he gets plus 5,000 power until the end of turn. I only run him at 1 because you're guaranteed to see him because he's in your soul and you can soul blast him out to get him back with either Zorga's effect or some of the order's effects. You can run more copies to help with the early game aggression, but I don't really feel that's necessary. From there, we have the grade 1 Rainbow Chain. He has the activated ability once per turn on Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 1, draw 2 cards from your deck. Either discard an order card or discard 2 cards. Now then, because of the fact that he doesn't say discard a normal order, you can discard Blitz orders to his cost. He then has a continuous Vanguard Circle. If you played in order this turn, he gets plus 2,000 power. Similar thing to this card you really don't need to see multiple copies of. If you were to run more copies of it, the 10k booster effectively from someone effectively does the same thing. That's why I only run one in the grade 0. So moving into the actual main deck, we're running 2 Hydraulic Ram Dragons. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have order, he gets plus 5,000 power for that battle. The only recommendation is you only ever need to play the 2, and as long as you see him, you can play him either from hand or drop some. If he ends up in damage, you can always heal him out. As long as you get the heal trigger, of course. But he helps you with your numbers and some really great duration. Moving into the main, for the non-order grade 2s, we have 3 Inheritance Maiden Andrina. When she's placed on a Rearguard Circle, you may mill or discard the top 3 cards of your deck into drop zone. This helps you set up for Alchemagic as well as Resurrecting cards. And then act Rearguard Circle, you can retire her. And until in return, the next time you would Alchemagic and you have to take any amount of Soul Blast, you ignore that. So once you get into it later, this just helps you ignore costs and you don't really have the resources to pay them, which is really nice. Moving into the grade 1s, we run 4 Conspiring Mutant Adamantus. On place on Rearguard Circle, choose one of your other Rearguards and it gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. This just really helps you hit higher numbers and really helps the deck push harder. We then run 4 of the Perfect Guards from the first set. From there, moving into the trigger lineup, we run the Over Trigger from Suikea. It is when you check it, you draw a card, choose a unit, gets an additional critical, all of your front row units get 10,000 power, and if you have equal to or more damage than your opponent, you heal 1. So you perform each trigger check that's currently in standard, and then you also perform the Over Trigger. So from there, we run 8 critical, 3 draw, and 4 heal. Essentially, you're just trying to be as aggressive as possible. You don't really need the draw power, so you can swap these out with front triggers if need be. So moving into the orders section of the deck, starting off, we run 4 Grief, Despair, and Rejection. To play, you have to use Counterblast 1. If your Vanguard is Mysterious Rain Supporter, it's really Zorga. Choose 1 or 3 of your units and get 10,000 power per turn. This essentially mimics Persona Ride, and you can do this alongside Persona Ride to get even higher tolerance. From there, we run 2 Cursed Soul, Scorpion, and Agony. To play this, you Soul Blast 2. From there, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card, and call it to Rearguard Circle and discard the rest. If this card was played using Alchemagic, meaning it's the card you played from your hand, or Combine Zone, you instead call 2 cards, but in either case, all the cards called with this card get 5,000 power. This helps you set up your board. This is only run at 2 because you don't want to see too many copies of it, because it mills you 4, and that does hurt in the long term and will cause you to get damage. Moving to grade 2, we then have for Ghost Chase. This is actually the blitz order of the deck. As stated earlier, you can discard this to rank your chain if you don't have any other orders in mind. But this cannot be grabbed back with Blackbeard's Husk Dragon because Blackbeard specifies a normal order. But Blitz order, choose one of your units that's being attacked and gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle. Then you choose one of your rear guards that's not being attacked and return it to your hand. So essentially, if you mill your overshooter, if you mill your perfect guards, or if you just use your perfect guards, you can resurrect them and use this to put them back in your hand to repeatedly use them. And the last card in the deck is Spiritual Body Condensation at 4. Play it with Soul Blast 1. Choose a card from your drop zone with grade equal to or less than your Vanguard's grade. Call it and it gets plus 5,000 power. This is essentially the one you want to combo with either of the other orders. So you can play this from hand, resurrect something, and give 3 beings 10,000 power. So you can go ahead and build a board and give power. Or if you really need to build a board, you play these in either way. So resurrect a card and then mill forward resurrect. Play 2 out of those. But this card really helps the deck move along where it needs to go. And I really feel like running less is detrimental to what the deck wants to do. So, yep, this is the Zorga list I'll be using in the fight against Naru Samurai. So let's go ahead and get into the fight.
So to start the match, I end up going first and begin by discarding Alden in order to ride fourth and pass turn. Anderson sticks with the same simplicity and discards to ride Rancor Chain and attacks. I take the damage and damage a sad early game heal trigger. On my turn, I discard my Snake Witch and go into Brooks, activate my Witch's effect to draw 1, then using the skill of my Fort and Soul to reveal 2 grade 3s and call from top, and hitting yet again another heal trigger. Following up with a singular attack to Anderson's Vanguard, thankfully getting the crit after losing 2 heals to deal 2 damage to my opponent. Anderson starts his turn discarding to ride Husk Dragon, and anticipating for a rush, he decides to just swing with Husk and call it a turn. Following up, I discard a Kokobio and ride Bastion, activating Rook's skill to draw a card. Thankfully getting another Fasado in hand, I caught 2 Fasados and moved into battle phase. Now at this point guys, I am decided to hold Alden for later and try to reclaim Counterblast that I used from last turn. If I'm able to get multiple of these attacks to hit, I will also be generating a lot of soul to use on the following turn as well for pieces like Alden, Snake Witch, and of course, Dark Strain. So starting the attack with Fasado number 1, Anderson decides to take the hit, allowing me to counter and soul charge 1. Next is Bastion attacking for 20k, he decides to guard for 40 and I drive check a Bastion and another Fasado. I decide to discard the extra Fasado to restand my rear guard and attack with Fasado number 2, which he guards with another 15k guard, and finally with Fasado number 1, which was 25k to allow me to soul charge 1 once again, ending my turn with 2 counterblasts to Anderson's 4. Anderson finally able to get his Zorga and activate Cursed Souls with Grief and Despair by the effects of Alchemy Magic, revealing a heal, critical, order, and Hydrina, and allocating the 10k power to the heal trigger, Zorga, and Hydrina. Then using Zorga's second skill to call himself a Husk from Soul, and then calls a Mantis from hand to proceed to battle phase, where I decide to take the Zorga hit, no triggers revealed thankfully, and then take the Husk and finally guarding the Hydrina. Following into my turn, I Persona ride Bastion, calling my Alden to rearguard to activate the skill to call Dark Strain and draw 2 additional cards. I then decide to retire my heal trigger and replace it with my boy Refluke, switch Alden and Fasado, and then send Refluke to Soul to give my Alden an additional plus 10k power. Finally, placing another Dark Strain on the board and activating its skill to give my back row grade 3 boost. My first attack obviously will be the Alden with a boost with Fasado for a total of 55 to his Vanguard, which he decides to take, and then I have a Vanguard Attack which he uses Ghost Chase to bounce his heal back to his hand, and guard with the Ghost Chase the heal, a 5k guard, and an intercept from Husk. I dry check a Lepisto and a critical, giving the 10k to Fasado and the crit to Alden. And since I revealed a grade 3 this turn, I discard the Lepisto to stand Alden with an additional plus 10k. Alden attacks again for 55, which is guarded with PG, and Fasado attacks for game, allowing me to finally win round 1 of the first episode. Going into round 2, I am up by 1, and I am aware that the Bastion deck has a slight advantage when it goes first. But now we are going to see how it is on the flip side on when Zorga has the upper hand. So coming into game 2, Anderson starts off his turn by discarding to write Rancor Chain, activating his skill to draw 2 and discards in order. Passing over to me, I proceed to do the same, discarding to write 4, and since I'm going second, I draw an additional card. Moving into battle phase, I just swing with 4, which to my surprise, Anderson guards the attack, and I end up dry checking a Dark Strain. Currently at this moment, guys, I am kind of scared as all the cards in my hand are grade 3s except for one, which is a PG. And coming into his turn, I'm most likely going to have to take all the attacks because I need the grade 3s in my hand for resource, for rooks and forts, and the PG is probably not best to use at a turn like this when more deadly attacks are coming later down the line. At the start of Anderson's turn, he discards Condensation to write Husk, activating Husk's skill to bounce Condensation back to his hand, which he proceeds to use Condensation to Soul Blast 1 and call Rancor Chain from the soul that went to the drop to the field. He starts off his turn with attacking with Rancor Chain for 1 damage, followed up with his Vanguard, which I took, and thankfully he didn't hit a trigger, leaving me at only 2 damage to his 0. Beginning of my turn, I draw and discard Snake Witch as I need to begin changing the cards in my hand in order to guard Zorga's attacks the following turn. I first ride Rooks and activate Snake Witch's skill to draw a card, then reveal 2 grade 3s to reveal top card and call it, and thankfully hit the magnificent Fasado. On battle phase, I first start off with the Rooks attack, and I dry check a Lepisto, and then follow with the Fasado attack, but instead of going to his Vanguard, attack his rear guard so that I can counter charge and soul charge. Anderson starts his turn, discards to ride Zorga, then right away calling and using Hydrina's skill to mill. He mills a Rancor Chain, a PG, and the over trigger for Stoicheia, thankfully leaving that out of sight and out of mind for myself. After paying the skill for Hydrina, he activates Curse Soul and Alchemagic it with Condensation, milling 2 triggers in order and a Hydraulic Ram Dragon, calling the Hydraulic Ram and the crit to the field, then for Condensation calls out a Zorga from the drop to the field, then counterblasting 1 for the Vanguard to call a Mantis from the drop zone and give another 5k to Hydraulic Ram. In battle phase, he attacks with his Vanguard to mine. I say no guard, hits a critical trigger, dealing 2 damage to me, sending me to 4. I guard the Zorga rear guard and then take the Hydraulic rear, checking my over trigger, keeping me at 4 damage. I start my turn, discard to ride Bastion, and for the skill of Rooks, reveal 3 grade 3s so that I can draw 1 card. Then I finally call Alden, but instead to the back row, activating his skill to call Lepisto and draw 2 cards, then filling the rest of the field with Dark Strains and Refluke. Using the skill of Dark Strain to have my grade 3s boost, I head into battle. I start the attack with Facade, which he responds with a Ghost Chase to bounce Zorga back to his hand and then calls a trigger to fill. Then I attack with Lepisto, but going with my gut, I chose not to boost the attack, and he decides to take the 15k hit and gets nothing. Bastion swings in, which he chooses to take, and I dry check the incredible crit trigger and a grade 3, so both my rear guards can withstand. Anderson takes the hit and sees no triggers on both checks. Sada goes in once again, which he decides to guard, and then Lepisto follows up, which is guarded as well. At this moment, I kind of feel bad as I have 3 P-guards in hand, but Anderson starts his turn and Persona rides, activating Condensation and Alchemagicking it with Despair to drop to build and power up his field.
For his battle phase, I P-guard his Vanguard, where he dry checks 2 normal units, then swings to his Husk, which I P-guard again, and finally his Hydraulic Ram, which I respond with another P-guard. Anderson, I feel bad, my dude. Starting my turn, I Persona Ride Bastion, draw into Posado, switching Lepisto for Alden, and then sending Reflux to the Soul to give Alden plus 10k, and calling the Posado to fill the field. And lastly, I activate the effects of Dark Strain, and Soul Blast my last 2 cards out in order to give boost to my field, and then proceed into battle. Alden starts it off with a 55k to Vanguard, which Anderson takes, and then Bastion to the Vanguard, which he ends up having to take as well. And then to add more salt to the wound, I pull the critical trigger, confirming death, and claiming the final match of the first episode.
Well, that's it. I was able to take a 2-0 record against Zorga, and even with the victory, I cannot say Bastion is a very power creeping deck, as what he has for strength, he kind of still loses in defense. There are many ways in the game where I feel like I cannot guard, and the chance of that happening in a match is very common. This is something they would need to fix to make the deck more consistent and maybe game breaking or maybe not. But for the most part, a very simple and fun deck and kind of perfect for beginners for getting into the game. I wanted to give a good old shout out though to Anderson for the games and Richard for giving me a good list to look at for inspiration. I also wanted to thank you all for watching the inaugural episode. This took me some time to make and hopefully you all like it. But other than that, if you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time in the dojo.